In 2014, scientists cracked a 500-year-old cold case. They had found Richard III, but they also found something else. A break in the royal bloodline. Somewhere between Edward III and the present day, at least one king was not fathered by who history claimed. The discovery raised a dangerous question. Could centuries of English monarchs have been illegitimate? The Tudors, the Stuarts, even Elizabeth II herself. But this was only the first secret hidden in royal DNA. What scientists would uncover next connected murder, cover-ups, and a family tree that stretched from London to Moscow to Mecca. In September 2012, archaeologists began digging beneath a car park in Leicester. They were searching for the lost grave of Richard III, the last English king to die in battle. What they found was a skeleton with severe scoliosis and 11 brutal wounds, including a blade driven through the skull. The bones matched contemporary accounts of Bosworth Field, where Richard fell in 1485. But bones alone could not prove identity. For that, they needed DNA. Dr. Turi King and her team at the University of Leicester extracted genetic material from a tooth and a leg bone. They traced 2 living descendants of Richard's sister, Anne of York, through an unbroken female line spanning 14 generations. Michael Ibsen, a furniture maker in London, and Wendy Duldick, a retired journalist in Australia, had never met. Yet when scientists compared their mitochondrial DNA to the skeletons, the match was perfect. The probability that these bones belonged to Richard III reached 99.999%. Then came the problem. The researchers also tested Y-chromosome markers, passed from father to son. They compared the skeleton to 5 living male line descendants of Henry Somerset, the 5th Duke of Beaufort, all tracing their lineage back to Edward III through John of Gaunt. The result was silence. No match. Somewhere across 19 generations, at least one son had been fathered by a man who was not his recorded father. The geneticists called it a false paternity event. Historians had another word for it: scandal. The break could have occurred anywhere on the family tree. If it happened in the York line, Richard III himself may have had no legitimate claim to the crown. If it happened in the Beaufort line, the entire Tudor dynasty rested on a lie. Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, all of them possibly pretenders. Kevin Schurer of the University of Leicester insisted the findings did not threaten the current monarchy. But science had cracked open a door that could never fully close. And Richard III was not the only royal skeleton waiting to speak. In a Russian forest, another set of bones held secrets far more personal to the House of Windsor. On the night of July 17, 1918, Bolshevik soldiers led Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, and their 5 children into a basement in Ekaterinburg. They told the family to wait for a photograph. Instead, the soldiers opened fire. The bodies were stripped, doused in acid, and buried in a forest grave. For 73 years, the Soviet government kept the location secret. The Romanovs had simply vanished. Then, in 1991, a mass grave surfaced near Ekaterinburg containing 9 skeletons. Russian authorities believed they had found the imperial family, but belief was not proof. To confirm the identities, scientists needed to match the remains to a living relative through mitochondrial DNA, the genetic thread passed only from mother to child. They needed someone who shared an unbroken maternal line with Tsarina Alexandra. They found Prince Philip. Philip was Alexandra's grandnephew. Both descended from Princess Alice of Great Britain, the daughter of Queen Victoria. In 1993, Philip provided a blood sample to Dr. Peter Gill and the British Forensic Science Service. When they compared his mitochondrial DNA to the bones pulled from Russian soil, the result was unmistakable, a perfect match with the Tsarina and her children. Philip had never met his murdered relatives. But when asked years earlier whether he would like to visit Russia, he had answered without hesitation. He would love to go, he said, though the bastards had murdered half his family. In 2007, the remains of 2 more Romanov children were discovered in a separate grave. Once again, Philip's DNA confirmed their identities. The Science Museum in London later displayed the forensic evidence, including graphs showing his blood aligned with bones buried before he was born. A single vial of royal blood had closed the darkest chapter of the 20th century. But Philip's DNA revealed something else, something that connected Elizabeth II to emperors, tsars, and thrones across Europe. It traced back to one woman whose marriage strategies had reshaped the continent and whose genetic legacy had brought not only power, but a hidden curse. Queen Victoria married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in 1840. It was a union of love, but also of blood. When their son Edward VII took the throne in 1901, Britain was officially ruled by a German house. The name appeared on royal documents, state papers, and the family crest. For over a decade, no one seemed to mind. Then came the war. By 1917, German Gotha bombers were dropping explosives on London. Anti-German riots swept the country. Shops with German names were smashed. Families anglicized their surnames overnight. Even German shepherd dogs were renamed Alsatians. And at the center of British identity sat a royal family called Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, the same word painted on enemy aircraft. On July 17, 1917, King George V issued a proclamation. The House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha would cease to exist. In its place, a new name, drawn from the ancient castle in Berkshire, Windsor. When Kaiser Wilhelm II heard the news, he reportedly joked that he looked forward to attending a performance of The Merry Wives of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. But Victoria's marriage had brought more than an inconvenient surname. It carried a mutation in her blood, a defect in the gene responsible for clotting, hemophilia B. She passed it to 3 of her 9 children. Her son Leopold died at 30 after a minor fall caused a fatal brain hemorrhage. Her daughters Alice and Beatrice became carriers, threading the disease into the royal houses of Germany, Spain, and Russia. The Romanov DNA analysis in 2009 confirmed what historians had long suspected. Tsarevich Alexei, heir to the Russian throne, had hemophilia B. His mother Alexandra and sister Anastasia were carriers. The boy's constant suffering drove his parents toward Rasputin, the mystic who promised healing. That dependence destabilized the dynasty and helped seal its fate. Victoria called herself the Grandmother of Europe. Her descendants sat on thrones from London to Moscow to Madrid. But her legacy was not only crowns, and alliances. It was written in the blood of dying children, and it reached even further than science once believed. Genealogists who traced Elizabeth II's ancestry found something extraordinary. Her bloodline did not narrow over centuries. It expanded. Researchers documented heritage stretching across Armenian, Arab, Danish, French, German, Greek, Hungarian, Italian, Norwegian, Polish, Portuguese, Romanian, Russian, Serbian, Spanish, Swedish, and Ukrainian lines. The woman who symbolized Englishness for 70 years carried the genetic fingerprints of half the world. In 1986, Burke's peerage made a claim that still echoes today. They traced Elizabeth's lineage back 43 generations to Princess Zayda of Seville, a Muslim refugee who fled the Almoravid invasion in the 11th century, converted to Christianity, and married King Alfonso VI of Spain. If the genealogy holds, the blood of the Prophet Muhammad flowed through the veins of the British monarch. Historian David Starkey called the connection not at all outlandish. Others remain skeptical, but the possibility alone reshapes how we understand royal identity. Elizabeth married her own cousin. Both she and Philip descended from Queen Victoria. Both traced their lines to King Christian IX of Denmark. The intermarriage was not accident. It was strategy, repeated across generations, binding Europe's thrones together through blood. But blood, as science now shows, remembers everything. And the full picture of who Elizabeth truly was demands one final reckoning. Queen Elizabeth II reigned for 7 decades as the symbol of British identity. But her blood told a different story. German princes hid behind English names. Russian cousins were murdered by revolutionaries. A genetic mutation spread from grandmother to grandchild, toppling dynasties and shaping history. And somewhere in her ancestry, 43 generations back, a Muslim princess may have married a Spanish king, threading a line from Mecca to Westminster. DNA does not care about borders, titles, or the stories we tell ourselves. It remembers what history tried to forget. And in the world's most documented bloodline, it revealed something no genealogy book ever could: that identity is never as simple as it seems. The throne may be ancient, but the truth is still being uncovered. If this story surprised you, subscribe, because the next one goes even deeper.